other videos, I showed you how to make a table from scratch in Adobe Illustrator. What I'd like to do in this video is to show you another way where you use Excel spreadsheet to create the table, and then you copy and paste it into Adobe Illustrator. You might find that this is quite a bit easier and less tedious than trying to draw it in Adobe Illustrator. So I've made a table here in Excel, and I've added some borders, and I'm just going to copy and paste it over in Illustrator. Now right now I don't have any fill for any of the any of the compartments of the table. Now I could add those colors here. I could make this blue, or whatever color you want to make it, orange. I'm not advocating for this particular color scheme, but I could color it all the way here and copy and paste it, and so hold control and press C. You'll see the dotted line that goes around the table, and then hold control and press V. But I kind of prefer to leave it with no fill and then add my own fill later, but either way works, and this certainly is easy. Now we've got a few things that are problematic. We have these little green triangles here showing that it's kind of an error checking function for Excel. Notice that it copies that over, which is problematic, and you see these gray lines. Now we're going to work to get rid of all those things. First, we're going to get rid of those green triangles. I recommend just deleting this and going back to Excel and click on that little error thing and say ignore error. That's probably the easiest way. You could go in Adobe Illustrator and delete it, but this is probably a little easier to do it that way. Now I'm going to highlight, I'm just going to highlight the whole thing, and I'm going to remove the fill. All the procedure would be the same if I kept the fill in the background, but I'm just going to add no fill. Highlight the table again, hold control, press C, hold control, press V, and there's the table again. Now the first thing I want to do is, you notice when I click on it, I click the whole object, and I want to be able to modify the individual components. So the way to do that is to first select the object, go up to Object, Clipping Mask, and then Release. This will release all the clipping mask in that selected object. The next thing I want to do is I want to ungroup it, because notice that it keeps it all grouped together. I'm going to click on this, then right click, and then click ungroup. I'm just going to highlight everything here and then press delete. Now this is different than just clicking on this object like this and then pressing delete. And the reason why it's different is if I just click on it, I select that one single object. Now if there's 50 objects under here, I would only select the top object and then press delete, and then I have to select it again, press delete again, and then the underlying object, press delete again. You'll find whenever you're copying things over from really any Word or Microsoft program that there's a lot of clipping masks, a lot of objects overlaying each other. So just to save time, I just select the whole thing, and that's going to select all the underlaying objects by using it's called the marquee select, and then press delete. Now that deleted everything in that region. I like this one, delete, select everything here, delete, select everything here, and delete. Okay, so now we have a good looking table. The next thing we want to do is maybe to color. I mean, obviously you could leave it like this and that works too, but why don't we go ahead and color it just so I can show you how to do that. Now there are two ways. The easiest way is to use the live paint bucket. And well, it's debatable whether that's the easier way, but that's one way to do it, is use the live paint bucket tool. To do that though, I need to group all of the line objects. Now what and then have that a separate group from the text object. So notice how these are individual lines. I want to group all those together. We can group everything, the whole object together by holding Control and press G. Sometimes that's good for organizing your artwork. And then I just double click so that I'm inside this group. Okay, so if you had other things drawn on the outside, they would all be grayed out and you wouldn't be able to select them at this point because we're now isolated within this single group. Now you can go up here and click Select Object, all text objects. Now it's going to select all the text objects. Now I want to select everything except the text objects. How do I do that? Well, I hold the Shift key and I select everything. The Shift key, if you click on if you have a whole bunch of objects selected and you hold Shift and click on one of those objects, then it will deselect that object. If you hold Shift and click on an object that were not previously selected, then it's going to add that selection to the group. For instance, so if I have this object, if I want to select another object, I hold Shift and click again. Now I've selected these two objects. And I click again. Now I've selected these three objects. Now let's say I don't want that that 8 here. I hold Shift and I click again. Now I've deselected that object. Click on the one. I've deselected that object. Okay. So what I've done is I click Select Object, all text objects. Now I hold Shift and I select everything. Now what that does is everything I previously had selected will be deselected and everything I don't have selected will be selected. So now I've selected all the line objects, but I haven't selected but I deselected all the text objects. And then I'm just going to hold Control and press G. So now I've grouped together all of the line objects. Okay, so now I've done that, I can now use the Live Paint Bucket tool. The reason why I had to do that is because you can only live paint into objects that you have selected. So now I can just click on this and I've selected all the line objects. Now if I click and hold, what you probably see is the Shape Builder tool. So I'm going to go over the Shape Builder tool, click and hold, go down to Live Paint Bucket. Now let's color the object. Again, I'm not advocating for these colors, but just to show you, maybe green. And now I'm coloring each one of those squares. Now I want to see the numbers as I'm coloring because I want to know if I actually like that color scheme. So I'm going to double click, so I'm within the group. I'm going to click on this, the lines, and I'm going to right click, click Arrange, Send to Back. You see how they pop up. Okay, so now I'm going to select again. I'm going to continue using the Live Paint Bucket tool. Now I guess I'm just going to use, I don't know, red maybe. Click away. Make that red. That's a little too dark, but we're going to adjust it later. And then I don't know, maybe in bright orange. And that's kind of a bit brighter too. So I'm going to use the selection tool to click away, double click, so I can leave the group. And there I have a colored table. Now, I don't particularly like this color scheme. You may, I don't know, but I don't prefer it. So I'm going to highlight this, go up to Color Guide, and now I can change some of the tints. Now this is going to change everything. If I click on this, so notice it changed everything. We don't want to do that. But we can go to this Edit or Apply Colors. Now this is a wonderful tool. So reset, and I'm going to click on Edit. And now here are all the colors represented or used in this table. So now I can modify that color. Notice that I changed this color. So I can move this around and get whatever color I want. So I don't know, maybe we can do maybe a lighter orange. Down here, we'll lighten the colors. I don't know, we can just play around with this pretty much all day. Okay, and then you click on this. And so notice I can make it purple if I wanted. I don't know, let's go purple, why not? And this can be red, sure. I don't know, I kind of actually like that. I don't know, maybe something like that. And then we can do blue. Again, I am not in any way advocating for these colors. I don't know, you can play around with it. So, okay, so we're going to click OK. And that applied new color. So now we've learned that color, the recolor artwork function. You know, we've used a live paint bucket. Another way of doing it is to, let's see. So here's a quick trick. I want to go back to the original object, but I want to keep this as a backup just in case my next step I don't really like. What I can do is I can highlight it, hold Control and press C, but don't paste it. And you copied it to the clipboard, but I haven't pasted it. So I'm going to hold Control and press Z. I'm going to work my way back. Okay, so that's back where I was. Now check this out. I can just hold Control and press V. There was my object that I was working with. Oh, first of all, I want to get out of the group because I'm now isolated within this group. Control V. So now I have my backup if I wanted to go back to it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about a different way of coloring it, is just to draw rectangles underlying the squares. And that's, to me, the most intuitive way of doing it rather than use the live paint bucket tool. Now, typically you're going to be in the draw normal mode. Down here, I want you to click on the draw behind. You don't have to do this. You could just draw the rectangle and then move it to the back like I showed you. But this also works. This might be a little more convenient. Now I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to make it this color. You can go back to the rectangle. So I just clicked on the eyedropper tool and I left click on this, and notice that I've grabbed, or I captured, that color. So now I'm going to align with the intersection of those two lines, and I'm going to draw. Notice that I'm drawing behind the object now. Okay, so we're going to use the eyedropper tool just so I don't have to, Control Z. So the eyedropper tool will modify whatever object you have selected. You can also click the eye button and the eyedropper tool will show up. But I want to draw a new object, so I'm going to click on Selection Tool, click away, then draw a new rectangle. Drew that rectangle. I'm going to click I, click on this. Then actually I can hold Control. No, I'm going to use the direct selection tool, or the regular selection tool, and draw another rectangle. You get the idea. Okay. So that's just another way of doing really the exact same thing. Now, okay. The other thing you might want to do is to add some gradients to it to make it look a little nice. I mean, this looks nice as it is, but maybe sometimes adding the gradient is kind of a nice touch to it. So let's do that. So I'm going to click on this top one here. I'm going to go over to gradient, and then I'm going to click the linear fit, and that actually looks pretty nice, but I want to rotate it to 90 degrees. Now I want this to be the same color as that, so I'm going to click on this circle, and I can double click on it and change the color. or I can use the eyedropper tool, and I can go anywhere. I can even click shades to pull the color from, but I'm just going to use this little purple here. Okay. Now I'm going to click over here to the eyedropper tool, click there, and I'm going to move these. These probably were this way to begin with for you, but I'm going to move it back here. I don't know, something like that. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this one. Okay. Now it's going to apply that same previous gradient. We're going to change the color because we want it to look like this. Now I'm going to click up there. Now if you don't have this previous one to work off with, so notice that if I click right here, I've added another point on this gradient curve. I don't want another point, that was an accident. So if you click, notice that there's a plus sign that is below my mouse. I don't want that other point, so I can click and I can just drag it away and I delete it. There's also a trash can that it shows up. You can use that. Now, as I was saying, if I wanted this pink color or I wanted a lighter color, and I don't have this table over here, I don't have access to it, I didn't copy it, I could actually use, but I want it to be a lighter hue than this this top row. I can click on it and then click the eye and then go use actually the gradient to choose the lighter color. See? So that gives me a lighter color there. I could do that. And the nice thing about doing it that way is I won't have changed my hue. I've only changed the lightness of the color. So that's one advantage of it. So now I'm going to change this to 90. Okay. That works too. And then I want to apply a gradient on this rectangle, and I can keep the same color scheme. So I want it to be, I don't know, blue. Now notice it's a bit harsh. Is this white? Yeah, okay. I thought it was a little bit purple. Okay. Now I want to move these a little bit off to the edge. Now I can keep that, but if I want this to be lighter, maybe not such a sharp edge, then I can use the same gradient that I'm actually within to lighten it up. So that's kind of handy. Yeah. There we go. Oh, added one there. And so that makes it maybe a little nicer of a table for your publications. And so that is how you, one before I close up, notice that I use the live paint bucket. I cannot really apply the gradients to the live paint bucket for backgrounds that I've added a live paint bucket. I mean, you can, but the ability to manipulate that gradient is greatly diminished and it looks really strange. So I don't recommend using, if you plan on using a gradient, I recommend drawing the rectangles as opposed to using the live paint bucket. So that is how you draw, how you make tables in Excel and copy them over, which can be more convenient. And then I've also talked about how to add some gradients to it.